Welcome to the NBA Front Office Show, bringing you inside rumors and transactions around the league with your hosts, Keith Smith and Trevor Lane. Brought to you by LakersNation.com and CLNS Media.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Front Office Show. Trevor Lane from LakersNation.com and Keith Smith from Yahoo, Real GM, and just about everywhere else you can possibly imagine. Coming to you, we're going to be talking all about, well, what looks like the return of NBA basketball, plus what exactly that's all going to look like when the NBA gets back up and running. As you guys are very well aware, Keith is the originator of the Disney World plan. I'm just calling it the Keith Smith plan at this point. We're going to talk a little bit about that and exactly what that's going to look like. But first, quick shout out, guys. Remember, LakersNation.com helps power the show, so make sure you guys go check them out. And of course, CLNS Media as well. Keith, you said you got a haircut, which is great. We switched places. Now I'm wearing the hat, and you're not. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, I had to go out. I here in Florida, I couldn't do it anymore. I was like pouring sweat, like doing simple menial tasks, like barely moving around, and it was getting real wet. It's funny, it's real thin up here, but then it gets real thick and nice back there. So if I ever want to go the mullet route, I am
You're
set.
in good shape for that. Yeah,
oh,
you're ready. Hey, you know what? 80s styles are starting to come back. Next thing you know, the mullet.
I do live in Florida too, so it's like the height of fashion here. So, we could maybe pull that off.
All right, that's what we're gonna have. We'll have a little progression over the shows for the next few months.
Yeah,
and then we can show everybody, from current Keith to mullet Keith, and whatever it takes. Then, 6 months from now.
Yeah, and then we'll be doing live shows together when my wife kicks me out and I have to move in with you. So yeah, that'll work out nicely.
That'll be great. Then it'll make it even easier to do shows. So there we go.
Yep.
On our last show, Keith, you threw it out there. You said, I guarantee the NBA is coming back. Looking like a pretty good guarantee at this point, huh?
Yeah, I feel really good about it. I could have looked like a pretty big idiot, more so than I usually do. But yeah, I feel really good. I think everything over really, let's call it the past 2.5, 3 weeks, has been trending in such a positive direction and just continues to move in that way. It looks like the single site is going to happen. Potentially still maybe 2 sites. We'll see, but it's looking more and more like a single site. The players are on board. The teams are on board. The league itself is on board. The broadcasters clearly on board because they've got a lot of programming holes to fill. So I think everything is lining up there to do that. I don't like to get too into the discussion about should they, the morals of it, because that's a very personal thing. I think for everybody's going to have their own personal feelings on that. But I do think that this is happening, one way or another. And not to completely dodge that, from my side, if the NBA believes they can do this safely for all parties involved, and they can do it without taking, testing away from the municipalities who need it in those areas, because it's really a state by state, municipality by municipality thing, then why not? Right. That's kind of been my opinion. If they feel they can do this now, I know there's people who will fire back and say, well, they can't. Well, we're going to find out. I mean, that's the reality of this. And we're going to find out here probably pretty soon.
Yeah. And it's sounding more and more like either they believe they can, or they're that desperate for the revenue, which, I mean, maybe a little bit of both here. But the NBA, it does feel like they are on the comeback trail. In fact, it was just a couple of days ago when we got that Woj bomb that was like, he kind of snuck it in there a little bit. He said, hey, teams are expecting at the beginning of June that we're going to start hearing about, what the protocol is for calling players back from different locations, players who aren't in the city, their home base city, right? Who are quarantining elsewhere, calling those players back and getting them back into their training facilities. And then he added in the little bit about, in preparation for the resumption of the NBA season. And look, I know there's certain issues with it. I know that some people aren't going to be happy with it. Some people might say it's not safe to do that and all of that. But as a basketball fan, I can't help but be excited about the idea of basketball coming back.
Yeah, that's that's what it boils down to for me is, there's a selfish component because that's how I make a living,
Right.
but there's also the piece of I just love basketball, and I don't want this season to just end, where it was with teams having played, 60, 65 games in that range-ish, and that's where we're at, and I don't want that to be how the season wraps up. So yeah, I'm feeling that way. And it's funny because I had someone ask me today, which I think was a pretty insightful question, is why are we not hearing more from ESPN on this? It's been The Athletic. I've obviously filled in pieces that I know. Mark Stein from the New York Times is filling in a lot of stuff. I think the reason you're not hearing it is there's a lot of they have to be very careful. They're not only are they a primary broadcast partner, but if the single site is going to be Walt Disney World, that's a owned, the same parent company as ESPN, the Disney company. So I think they just have to be really careful because you don't want to be, one side of the company is saying one thing while another. That's a big Disney thing. Trust me, I know after 20 years of working there, they want the same messaging coming out at all times from everybody. So I think that's just the caution there why you're not hearing too much. They also don't want it to look like they are championing through the media or championing themselves for like, we should be doing it here because of, X, Y, and Z. And that's, again, something to be cautious of, but that's why, and I know there's a lot of people who, until Woj says it, I'm not going to believe it. And, that's, to some extent fair. He doesn't get every bit of news that's out there. He gets the, 99.99999% of it. So, so that's fine, but it's, I do. I think we're there. And you touched on it a minute ago. Just being completely honest about everything with this, money drives all of it. That's what's driving this. There are billions of dollars at stake. If they don't finish this season out, even without fans present, even in a single site, just from the TV side, both with the regional contracts and the network contracts, there are billions of dollars at stake. And that filters all the way down through both of the team side of the organization, the players, the league, everybody. That filters all the way down to everybody. And that's really, really important. And that's, the reality is there's a lot of people who they want to make sure they get every dime that they can get out of this season, knowing it's already going to be less than what they expected because of no fans and no ticket revenue and concessions and all the things that go into that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something we talked about on our last show, that the players' side of it isn't just about this season. It's not just about, hey, my team's not in the playoffs, why do I care? Well, no, a lot of those guys should care, and the messaging has been that you need to care because it's about next season, it's about the season after, it's about what these revenue numbers are going to mean for any changes that come in the CBA. So I think that the players are more and more coming over onto the side of, okay, let's do this, let's figure out a way to make this happen. I know I've also been hearing the sentiment that, well, look, there's a decent chance that wherever we are is going to be a safer place than chilling at home, right? Because of how over the top the NBA is going to be in order to try to keep everybody safe. So there's that aspect of it as well. But if and when it happens, I think it's just going to be a win for the morale of the country, and certainly obviously for basketball fans, but just to see sports back again, to bring that normalcy, I'm really looking forward to that. And I know we're starting to hear the dates. I'm sure you saw Spencer Dinwiddie. He was hearing, and it's Spencer Dinwiddie, so we got to throw this out there, right? I mean, like this is the dude who tried to start a GoFundMe to pick his next location, his next team he was signing with. This is the guy who tried to convert his contract into a Bitcoin deal. And I don't know all the particulars of that. I couldn't figure. I read that thing like 3 times, and I couldn't figure out exactly how that was all going to work.
Yeah, I'm going to keep real money. I don't have enough real money to start transferring it into internet money.
But bottom line is Dinwiddie was saying, hey, June 21st, we're going to be back at practice. July 15th, season's coming back. And to me, that was huge, just hearing those dates.
Yeah, absolutely. That's starting to align with all the dates I'm hearing. I was speaking with folks from teams, and they were speaking in generalities. There's a lot of ish in there because these guys aren't going to be the guys who are going to dive into these are the exact specific dates and that. But the things I heard in general there were, it's that June 1st date that Woj threw out there of that's kind of the mandatory recall date that teams can say players got to come back. Now, one thing I want to be very clear about is that maybe sounds worse to people than it maybe really is. I think there's some people who, if you're on the negative side of this, are taking it as like they're going to make these guys come back even if they don't want to and they're not ready. the vast majority of the players are back in their NBA cities. They're back there ready to go. Now, a lot of these guys, they traveled home. We saw that during the horse competition, right? We saw Chris Paul was in LA, Zach LaVine was in Washington State, and Trae Young was in Oklahoma. Mike Conley was back in, I believe it was Ohio or Indiana. Well, one of the two where he was. So, we saw these guys were home. But what you're now looking at with this is the players, a lot of them have traveled back to their NBA city. I think we're up to 19 or 20 teams are already doing voluntary workouts, and the voluntary attendance has been really high and really good in those. Now, what's also important in that is, and because I've been saying this for a while, is getting the guys back in is the first look the medical and training staffs get at these players and get a sense of how do they look physically? Do they look like, oh my God, they sat for 2 months and did nothing? They ate everything. There was a Postmates or Uber Eats or whatever you use at the door every 5 minutes. The Joel Embiid approach, right, where he's ordering milkshakes at midnight or whatever it was back in the day.
What was the thing he was drinking? Shirley Temples?
Shirley Temples, yeah.
Shirley, out of all things, Shirley Temples.
Right, I know. Yeah, that's funny. That's what I used to drink when we went out for Chinese food when I was a kid back in the day. But it was that's not the case from the folks I'm talking to. These guys look better than what they thought, and significantly better. And a lot of them said you could tell these guys were getting the best amount of work in that they could for a lot of these players. So I think that is where then you start to build out, all right, well, we're going to do a training camp of some sort, whether that's 3-4 weeks, whatever it is. That's going to be what we do. And then that starts to build your timing to whatever we're going to do. I was told then they'll travel to the single site, and then they'll have a week or two there where it's kind of sit still as we test to make sure everybo's good to go. And then, and then we're into probably a little bit of practice time, and then we're into games, and, and off we go from there. So I think all the dates are starting to line up, matching to, there's been a lot of reporting that's been a lot more specific on dates. Yeah. And I think all of it for me, it's all close enough in and around the same dates where I think everybody's kind of getting the same message here.
Yeah, it all has the ring of truth. And I got to ask this question on our live show last night. People were saying, well, all we're hearing right now is rumors. How can you be so confident about any of this? It's just rumors, right? Yes, but you're hearing rumors from all these different sources, and the momentum, the general shift is kind of pushing in that direction that, hey, this is going to happen and this is going to come back. So that's when you're seeing multiple people, when it's Stein, when it's Woj, when it's Shams, all these people are crafting this narrative. Players right? As well. Yeah,
Dinwiddie
saying that
Dudley
they're hearing.
And,
right. Exactly. Saying it's happening. That's when a pretty good chance. Now, Keith, one thing I want to touch upon before we dive into what the specifics of this are going to look like, assuming it's Orlando, because we're hearing that's the favorite right now. But before we dive into that, one of the things that I'm hearing little rumblings about is these non-playoff teams, the teams that aren't going to be in the playoffs, and who knows how many games they're going to play when they come back, how many regular season air quotes games they're going to play. But some of these teams, the Warriors, the Hawks, the Knicks, these teams that are out of it, they're not going to bring anybody back. Like guys like Steph Curry, Draymond Green, They're probably going to say, what's the point? Why put him out there on the floor? How much of that dynamic are you anticipating where the true star players who aren't playoff bound are just told, hey, you know what, you just chill over here and stay healthy?
Yeah, a big part of that. Now, I don't know if it won't be they're not even bringing them with them. Yeah. And that could very well be the case, because it does sound like, I believe it was Mark Stein reported today that it's going to be pretty limited to the amount of people you can bring. It's going to be somewhere in the 30s. I think he said 35.
35,
and it's funny because, again, we're talking, everybody's hearing around. I've been hearing 30 to 40. Well, 35 right smack in the middle of that. And most traveling parties are between 50 and 80 on a general time. So yeah,
which a lot of people don't get. A lot of people see 12 players on a basketball team, but they don't understand how much it goes in behind that in order to get that team there.
Yeah, I mean, you have in-house media and trainers and medical staff and equipment people and all that. Now, one good thing is if you're doing a central location, you can double up with some of the folks, like the broadcast people. You don't need to bring as many of them. You can do some probably with some of the equipment people. Can help each other out if they need be, and the things like that. So that is important. But yeah, that's what I'm hearing is, so let's use the Warriors as an example here. And I think it was Tim Kawakami who put out there, like, this is what it'll be, which was kind of humorous to me. I laughed. I'm like, so it'll be their roster that it's been all year anyway. Like, what are we doing?
It'll basically be the Warriors, minus Steph and Draymond.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, that's what we've seen for a vast majority of the season. But as I look at it, I don't think it's any different than April. The 2 weeks of April are really every year are like that's when he's got back spasms. He's out tonight, and it's like, and you start seeing all those things start popping up, and those teams that are out of it, they're already, sitting guys, or it's a cameo appearance of, I'm going to pop in and I'm going to, play, 10 minutes here and then I'm out of the game and that'll be it. And those kind of things. And I think that's, smart on the team side. Now I think, because I've been asked, what if a team just says, we're out of it, we're not going? Well, one, they won't. If the league says you're going, you're going. Yeah. That part's already, that's, done. But they won't do that anyway, because everybody, to your point that you said at the beginning, everybody knows what's at stake here. This is billions of dollars for all of us, not just, it's not like if the Warriors don't come, everybody says, well, then the Warriors don't get a part of that. That's not how this works. So the Warriors would never do that because they know they got to be there. But yeah, I think those teams that are really, really far out of it, I think you're going to see them show up, and, you may not even see them bring their star players. I don't think any of like Klay Thompson, I've heard some people say, well, would you bring him back as a little bit of a, test run and a warm up? No. Not a chance, Nope. So why, just, we'll see you in the fall, whatever that looks like when we, pick back up for next season. And that's what you're going to see. You're going to see these teams be very cautious, judicious. But it's funny, I've heard, from some of the younger guys in the league, it's funny you mentioned the Hawks, because I did hear from one of a younger Hawks player who's, part of their presumable future. And he's like, I want to play. He's like, I'm a basketball player. I want to play. I've been sitting around for, a couple months now. I want to get back out there and do something. So I think it's just going to be team by team, how guys are feeling. But I think, if Steph Curry does play, the minute Steph's like, something's not feeling right with my, ankle or knee. Nope, done. Yeah. See you later. You're on the bench for the rest of this thing. It might even be, go ahead and leave the bubble, if that's what we're doing, and then now you're kicked out. See you later. That's probably an extreme, but yeah, you're not gonna see the superstars from those teams that are hopelessly out of it. I'd be very surprised. But you don't see them in April anyway, so it's not really any different.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that outside the norm or anything like that. For some reason it popped into my head this scenario where Steve Kerr is walking alongside Steph Curry and somehow just kind of gives him a little shove outside of the bubble and goes,
yeah, right.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, Steph. Well, hey, we'll see you later. See you next season, buddy.
That's so funny you say that. My daughter and I have been playing the Lego Marvel games, which are amazing, by the way. They're really, really fun. What a big fan of Marvel I am. Yeah. But we've been playing through those games, and there's this part where you're underwater and there's a bubble, and like we were like screaming at each other, you're too far over, you're gonna go outside the bubble, and so that's what that made me think of.
I know, we're almost picturing a physical bubble that these players are going to be in, like the Iron Curtain, right? Was a real curtain, right? No, of course it wasn't. But exactly. Anyway, so Keith, let's go off of what we've heard and what we're hearing as far as concrete news, right? That it looks like it's going to happen, right? That's the rumor right now. We're hearing those dates, so let's assume, and we've heard a little bit that some teams are going to be doing like some training camps at their home base, at their home training facility.
I think everyone's going to be doing that. And I think that's the plan. Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
but so let's say that they arrive in Orlando whenever, beginning of July. Okay. Let's say they all arrive whenever. Disney World better than 99.9% of the people in this world. So what does that look like? Teams show up. They're going to start getting ready. What happens?
Yeah, so full disclosure for those who don't know at this point, I worked for the Disney company for nearly 20 years. Vast majority of that time was at Walt Disney World in Florida. I did work at Disneyland for a little while in California, but the vast majority of my time was spent here. So I know the property quite well, and I am a Central Florida resident. I actually live, about a mile and a half from Disney property. So I am. So if anybody knows and is right in it, It's me. So what I'll tell you is, in this case, I'm going to go all the way back to they get here to Central
Mm-hmm.
Florida. There are people who are like, yeah, and then they got to interact with all these people at the airport. These guys don't fly into the airport and roll through, security and bad claim like me and you do, and probably everyone listening to this show. That's not how it works.
They're waiting in the back of coach for everybody else to
Right?
get off. No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're like my mom, and they jump up the minute the fasten seatbelt lights off, and block the aisle up so nobody else can move. They are no. These guys are. They're gonna come. They're going to come in on their transport, whatever that may be. That's the other thing I think too. People think that every team has their own private plane. We heard this at the beginning of the whole shutdown. Remember, was the Jazz plane was also used by the Grizzlies and the Magic and these teams. So there's kind of more of a fleet of planes that these teams all they rent basically from the same people. They lease, charter, call it what you will. But they'll come in and they're going to get probably picked right up wherever it is they land, all their stuff thrown in, and off they go. And they're headed right off to wherever the hotel is. Now, I'm not saying this is the case, but I've been doing a little digging and using some of my Disney knowledge and Disney contacts. Coronado Springs, which is a massive resort on property, which is a pretty straight shot to the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex. The sports complex, which we'll talk about in detail in a little bit, is where the basketball hub would be. But Coronado Springs is essentially almost completely blocked out for the month of July. Now, you could go on and start looking online and book a reservation at just about any other resort right now. And that's, if Disney will be open, not open, we'll see. But you have that ability to do. Coronado Springs is mostly unavailable. Now, Coronado Springs is also Disney's prime convention hotel. They recently, within the last year or so, opened a giant tower there, which is absolutely beautiful, rivals really a lot of the Las Vegas convention style resorts. And they also refurbished the entirety of the rest of the resort. The idea being to attract high-end convention business to the property. The other piece is there's over 220,000 square feet of convention space immediately attached to that resort, which is also really important because the idea there is if teams need meeting spaces, additional workout spaces, not for basketball, but if they wanted to put in like weights or something like that, it's there. If they're going to bring families, there's pools, there's a health club, a gym for families to work out. There's a marina which is completely self-contained within the resort where you can rent boats and sail around. There's a lot of walking trails all over that resort. And like every Disney hotel, if you've ever been to Walt Disney World, there's a security gate. You're not getting in unless you need to be in. And, kind of just as important in this circumstance, you're not going to get out really easy either. They're going to know if you're leaving too. And that's, I think of equal importance here. And then like I said, it's a pretty straight shot over to the sports complex. So I think I'm just, I don't know for certain, but I'm starting to piece together that could be, the hotel. And that hotel is also set a little bit away from some of the other stuff. So there's not another hotel right on top of it. It's not attached to a theme park, anything like that. It is kind of set off by itself a little bit so that, again, adds further credence to, there. But what really raised my eyebrows was, this is the only place you can't book? Something's weird here. That seems off, a little bit to me.
Now, we've heard that MLS could be doing the same thing. Would that be a location for, or do you think that would be separate for just NBA? This is your bubble.
Yeah, I don't know. So speaking with someone from Disney, one of the things that they told me is we've got enough space. We can do both, hotel space and space at the sports complex. It's not an issue. And one of their, thoughts that they said was floated around in these kind of high level planning sessions is, what if you put them all together and then that allowed you to have some ability to say like, hey, MLS, you're off. You want to go watch NBA games? You're already in the bubble. Go. We'll get you over there. And that gives you a little bit of semblance of fans in the crowd or, something like that. It's not going to be a ton of people, but it could be, at least some, kind of ambient noise in there in the facility beyond, just the basketball. So we'll see. I don't know what that looks like. The MLS is, I don't want to say it's gone silent. It's gone quieter. But I think some of that just might be the NBA has picked up so much steam, or maybe the MLS is just working a little quieter, behind the scenes. But from the Disney standpoint, they feel very confident that they can host both.
Well, yeah, that would be great to see at least some kind of fans there. And if they're soccer players, great. Hey, Chicharito can go and cheer for the Lakers, or whatever, right? Like you can have those things happen. But look,
and vice versa too, right? Like go watch an MLS game and we know a lot of these NBA guys are huge MLS fans, or soccer fans at least. Is maybe not MLS, but they're big soccer fans. We know a lot of these guys are.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. I mean, obviously they would be towering over most of the soccer players, but that would be kind of a cool experience to see some of the NBA guys there at the MLS games and vice versa. That would be a lot of fun. But then so once you get, let's say that they decide, hey, every team needs to hit that magic number, 70 games, right, in order to get their TV revenue, which means you're not doing what we've talked about previously, where you tell the non-playoff teams, sorry, stay home. Everybody's coming. Let's say they don't do the thing where they split, right? So you don't have the West in Las Vegas and the East in Orlando. You just have everybody in Orlando. Logistically, how do you deal with 30 teams in one location, having the practice room for all of them, getting all the games done? How do you manage that and keep everybody safe at the same time? It feels like a very daunting task the more and more I think about that.
It does, but then think where me and you would be gearing up to be a month and a half from now in Las Vegas in a normal year, right? They do it, and they had, not only did they have 30 teams, but they had 32 last year, because remember they had the Croatian and Chinese national teams. Yeah, I believe were there. Well, I know it was China. I think Croatia. I think. And then, but
what was? Oh no, there was a ton of media from Japan.
Yeah, for Rui Hachimura.
For Rui Hachimura. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
But so they so they had those teams there too. So let's talk that part of the logistics, right? So let's first talk what's been floated around them. And I think what we're all kind of generally hearing is that 70-game marker, 100%. Just for the background on that, that's where the RSN, the Regional Sports Network contracts fulfill for the vast majority of the teams. I want to say it's 24 out of the 30 teams fully fulfill at 70. And I've heard that there's a belief that there can be some renegotiation to get everybody to say, if we got to 70, we're all good with everyone here. So that's big. So that's why they want to get there. Teams are anywhere from 3 to 7 games away from that right now. I know the Lakers are on the high end. They're at 63 games right now, and the Hawks are one of the teams that's on the low end, I believe, at 67 games. So they'd only have 3 games to play. The Lakers would have to play 7. But people much smarter than you and I, no offense to you, but definitely me, would be able to work out that schedule, right? Yeah. They're the ones who will make that work. So that becomes a thing. There is, they'll figure all that stuff out. Now, I will say, on top of that is then, all right, so you got to bring all these teams in and play some regular season games here and make that work. Now, how does Disney make that work for the NBA? So let's get into the sports complex itself, because now we're really into the basketball hub and what does that look like. So the basketball hub here, the sports complex is the cool thing about it is this place is huge. It's massive. There's maps out there. People can go and look and see what it looks like. But they have 3 primary indoor facilities that would be, presumably used for this venture. First is called the HP Fieldhouse. It's an arena. It looks like a mid-major gym, I think, is the best way to explain it, the way it's set up. And then it can be, kind of reconfigured for other stuff. But that's what it primarily looks like. It hosts the Advocare Invitational every year, which is a college basketball tournament over Thanksgiving week. So there's always, 8 high-level Division I schools there that come every year and play in that. So it's fully game ready. It's a little smaller seating capacity wise than UNLV, but that's really the only difference. And seating capacity doesn't matter because there's not going to be fans.
There's not going to be fans there anyway.
Maybe these limited, MLS people, but
right.
That would be it. So that is where you're at, there. So that I presume would be kind of the main game court. That would be one of your main game courts. Then there's two other facilities. One is called the Arena. It has no sponsor to it. It was initially built to host cheer and dance competitions, which have become massive and huge all over. And Disney hosts some of the bigger ones for both the college and high school and youth levels, or all, I guess, college, high school, youth levels. But it can be configured to hold up to 3 basketball courts in it at a time, or really set up arena style with one arena style setup for the court. So I presume that would be your second game court, because you're going to have 2 going on. So now you're at the UNLV Cox Pavilion, the Thomas and Mack and Cox Pavilion set up there, right, where they're kind of side by side, and that's how you play the games. Now, practice facilities. There's another big gym on the sports complex property. It kind of sits in between the arena and the field house, called the Visa Center. And the Visa Center is, I liken it akin to an airplane hangar. It's this big, giant, open facility that can be configured just about whatever you need it to be. I've been in there when they've had as many as, it seems like, 10 to 12 courts set up for the Junior NBA World Championships and AAU tournaments and the like. So it can be really set up. I think that's where would be the practice facility and the shoot-around facility for them, and I think they'd have to build out a schedule. What does that look like? We can set this up. I don't think they'd set up that many courts, but I think you set them up, you put up dividers and walls and things in between, curtains and all the like, to kind of give a little bit of privacy where you can, and that gets set up as your practice facility, if you will, for everybody. And then there'd be clearly a schedule where it would be, hey, this team's going to practice from 10 to 12. And I think people have this mindset of like, well, NBA teams, practice, must run, hours and hours long. It doesn't. They're generally, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours at the most. And then there's a lot of other things the players do, which keeps them in the facility, long term. And that's where I think the convention center at Coronado Springs, if that's where they end up staying, can be set up. That can be your film and meeting area for teams and the like. That's big enough too, 220,000 square feet. I've been in there where they've had as many as, 10, 15, 20, 30 different conventions at a time. You can certainly host, 35 times 30 of NBA in there at a time and spread them all out and give them their, hey, this room in the convention center, that's for the Lakers. This one's for, the Hawks. This one's for the Sixers. This one's, for this team. And that's where it is. You can set up all the projectors, everything they need to do film sessions and the like, and get all that set up. Then on the sports complex facility as well, there are medical things there, because again, it's a working sports complex. There's hotels that are, hospitals that are very close by. If God forbid something major happens that can't be handled in house, right down the road, probably 5 minutes maybe, which is a lot of times more than you can even say in some of these NBA cities for how close a major hospital is. And if anything ever really that they couldn't handle, downtown Orlando is not that far away from here. Now I want to touch on something there because it gets asked a lot, is would the Magic, which people might be familiar with from the old Orlando Summer League days, would their practice court be involved? Would the Amway Center be involved? I don't think so, because for all that everybody likes to talk about Walt Disney World being in Orlando, it's really not. It's very far south of especially the city proper and where the Magic are located. So I don't think that would be the case. I think that's extremely unlikely, just because now you're talking about really expanding that bubble, if you will, and that's going to make it a lot harder to kind of control and contain and all those things, all the things that could go wrong between point A and point B there. So I don't think that they would be involved, but if you really needed to involve them, they could be. I was told that the league could ask to lean on the Magic a little heavier for some of the equipment and the things that they might need to have to pull this off and the like, and some of that more specialized equipment that Disney probably doesn't have immediately on hand. But really, Disney's facility has everything you need, and you're not having to go in and say, well, all right, we're going to turn this convention room into a basketball court, suitable to host a game. Mm-hmm. That doesn't need to happen. They're already set up and ready to go and can do that. Again, I like to say with all this stuff, relative ease, because none of this is actually easy. But I think, with relative ease, they can do that.
Yeah, and I mean, like compared to, say, like we heard the idea that Los Angeles was, trying to promote themselves as an option, or at least throwing it out there that they could be an option. And It feels like to me, looking at all the particulars, even comparing Vegas, which I thought was a great option to begin with, Disney World just seems like it's got everything they could possibly need. Like you mentioned, the Orlando training facility for the Magic. That court just is it's so small. I wonder too.
Yeah,
about,
it's a full size regulation court. It's just not. Yeah,
there's not a lot of surrounding space though. There's a lot of players kind of on top of each other there, so you've got that factor as well. But I guess the other thing that I was curious about here is, would the players and their families have any access to the rides and the attractions and things like that at Disney? I mean, maybe it depends on if the park is open or not, but would they have any access to the entertainment options there? And if so, the Milwaukee Bucks are in big trouble because the Lopez twins are going to go AWOL. They'll just be gone.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Brooke Lopez owns a house on Disney property. Disney, a few years back, opened up this chunk of the property and built several beautiful homes in there. And Brooke Lopez was one of the early buyers in there, and he has a home in there. So so there's someone who said the Bucks have home court advantage because he lives
he has
on the property. And it is funny, we do see the Lopez twins at Disney quite often. You see them pretty regularly, walking around the property. A lot of times I think they spend their off season bouncing between the two Disney properties here in the States. So let's talk about that for a minute. So this is, I think, another good grounding. If people want to look on my Twitter, it was a couple days ago, I put up a tweet that shows the entirety of Walt Disney World's property, with all the hotels and the theme parks and all that. And then I kind of found another picture where it overlays over the New York City, and it shows, I think, to prove Walt Disney World property is 39 square miles. That maybe doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people. My brain doesn't work that way really, but
that's huge.
Where I can understand, it's twice the size of Manhattan and it's the size of San Francisco. So it's a city. It is a city. It is a city size, and there's different from maybe some of your listeners, Lakers fans, I assume a lot of West Coast people who have probably been to Disneyland. You can fit the entirety of the Disneyland resort. So the parks, the two theme parks, the hotels, they're downtown Disney, in the Magic Kingdom and the Magic Kingdom's parking lot, just about here in Florida. So to give you the sense of that size, just how much bigger Walt Disney World is. Now, Disney is in the process of starting to reopen Disney Springs, which is the Florida version of downtown Disney. It's retail and dining. It started to reopen just a couple days ago. That was all the partner companies there. They have kind of like a big outdoor mall, like you see a lot of places there. So they started to reopen, and then the Disney operated and owned facilities are going to start opening here next week. So they're going to start opening up and be open to guests. So that's kind of the first, let's, dip our feet in the water, see how this goes, see how people are reacting to things. Universal Studios, which is completely separate from Disney, it's a different theme park group with two theme parks, further miles down the road, closer to downtown Orlando. They are reopening at the beginning of June. They have already announced that they're going to be reopening to guests then. So Disney will be reopening their parks here probably fairly soon. But what's likely to be for Disney, because there are 4 theme parks, there's 2 water parks and all that, it's going to be a slow and staggered reopening. The expectation is it'll be 1 park that opens for a while. That'll be the Magic Kingdom. That's the primary park. That is the version of Disneyland, if you will, here in Florida. So it will reopen. Then, kind of see how it goes there. In that, the other piece is there's not going to be the volume of guests traveling here to Central Florida to need to open all 4 parks and all the hotels and those kind of things. Now, this is where people are like, yeah, but once you have guests there, that's it. Like, you can't create a bubble. You can't do any of that. Well, the sports complex, if you look at a property map, it's pretty far off by itself. Its roadway in is probably close to a half mile long down into the sports complex before you're even like to the parking for the facilities. And then you're a pretty good walk from the parking into the different arenas and the like anyway. So they are pretty well isolated for that. The hotel, we already talked about that. No one's going to get in there that shouldn't be in there. That's pretty easily done also. So I think, Disney could certainly reopen to guests and go. Now, would the players and their families be allowed to go? that's really going to probably be the NBA's call. If it is the Jared Dudley approach of, people can come and go, and if they get sick, that's on them. Well, then sure. I've been told that's probably not how it's going to be. It's probably not going to be as, that.
I can't imagine it.
Yeah, what I have been told is it's more within the areas that are open to you. You have free, roam about and do whatever you want. But what Disney does very well is they'll bring in entertainment into wherever the players and their families are staying. They'll bring characters in. They'll bring in a bunch of entertainment hosts. They'll make sure there are plenty of activities to do. They'll have the pools, clearly. They'll have things set up to do movies and all these other things, for families. Like I said, there's bike paths, and there's walking and jogging trails at Coronado Springs. There's a marina. There's all those things if that's where it is, and they'll have that set up. One thing that's not uncommon for us here in Central Florida, unfortunately, is hurricanes. That does happen. And when that happens, we have to do a shelter in place in the hotels. And you can't, just say, hey, a hurricane's coming, send all the guests home. It doesn't work that way. If they're here, they're here. And a hurricane generally, blows through and it's gone within a day or so. So you don't want to send everybody home if, one day of their trip is going to be spent. So what you do is you tell them, all right, you're in the hotel now, you're kind of stuck here. But what Disney does fantastic, and I think I slipped a we in there because I'm not that far.
You're in Disney mode still.
Right? Is bring in characters and entertainment and all these people into the hotels to make sure people are still having a good time, because it's Disney. If there's one thing Disney knows how to do better than just about anywhere else in the world, it's take care of people and make sure you're having some fun. So they'll make sure that there's plenty to do and plenty of fun to be had. And then the assumption I was told from folks within the NBA is, as teams are eliminated from this, they go. They're they'd see you later. You're out of here. Your season is over, and good luck. So I don't think you're going to have too much worry if Disney reopens while the NBA is here, with a lot of crossover and those kind of things. I think you're going to see them do a pretty good job of keeping everything apart. But I really do encourage people, go look at that tweet to get a good sense of, what does the property map look like specifically, and then look at the overlay picture with New York City to get an understanding of just how big the property is and how far away things are. For example, where I live on the property, to get to the other end of property, it's almost a 25-minute car ride. So if that gives anybody a sense of how long.
So you're not going to get player X's kid isn't going to go, ride 15 rides and then come back and, hug dad. And then next thing you know, everybody, you're passing along this thing. Yeah, that's not the scenario that's going to happen. I do think it's interesting too. Go ahead.
I do want to say too, if the parks are not reopened to paying guests, they will not be open just for the NBA. I would be very, very surprised if that happens. For example, the Magic Kingdom, to open and run the Magic Kingdom, that's roughly, a 15 to 20,000 person operation. And that's Disney's not going to be in a position to do that for the, 1,000-ish number of people here with the NBA. Like that's probably pretty unlikely. Now, maybe they could, but that's a very, very big undertaking. It's not me walking in and flipping on a switch and all the rides are on and everything's ready to go. It doesn't work quite that easily.
Just plug the cord into the wall and everything's good.
Yeah. That's how they shut it down, right?
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting too that teams, once they lose, that's it. They're exiled from the bubble. They just you're out. You're cast out to go wander and.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to be quite walk the plank. Go back out there like. I wasn't a big fan of The Walking Dead, but I don't think it's going to be like, throw them out to the zombie horde. They lost. Man, that'd be, some stakes though, right there.
Yeah,
if you,
right.
Toss them out, no, but I was told, at that point, it's basically like, all right, you're done, go. Now, we know a lot of these players. I mean, we see them at Summer League. They're hanging around the gym all day, watching, guys who they're not going to be in the NBA, so it wouldn't surprise me if some guys are like, man, I'm what else am I going to do? I'm going to stick around, and I'll watch. So I'll be curious to see how that looks, and what that looks like there. We didn't talk it too. I want to, touch on it real quick with the, with what a day might look like, right? I think it's how it was explained to me this morning. And we're recording this on Friday, the 22nd. This morning, I spoke to someone who said it's probably going to be pretty Summer League like for at least that regular season part, where you're going to play. Games are probably going to tip off around noon Eastern, and then you're going to go straight into the night. Probably get 4 or 5 games in a day on each court. So you're talking 8 to 10 games a day that'll get played. And I think what is kind of important there to note is, yeah, they're set up to do that. It's very much set up like Summer League will be set up. Not exactly the same, but pretty similar with the way they can run people in and out and get things moving and go. And we know that's what Summer League does. Every day. For especially that first 4 or 5 days of Summer League, it's right. 10 games a day, 5 games on each court, and if you're there, you bounce in between the gyms. But those games are just they're going on, and I think that is the big push here with Disney is we can do that exact same thing. So I think you're going to see games played at all different times. I would assume they're going to do things like they're not going to make the Lakers play at noon Eastern. He'll probably be more make sure that they're in a 9-10 o'clock Eastern window, so it's more of a normal time on the West Coast and those kind of things. But they
still want the ratings
exactly, and that's it. And if you've got Hawks Cavs, that's a good noon Eastern game. You get it in, the Hawks and Cavs fans will find it and they'll watch it, and then off we go with everybody else. So that's what I think a typical day is going to look like. And then I was told playoffs will look more like a normal playoff schedule, where it'll be probably something along the lines of 2 to 3 games a night. Which is pretty normal in the first round, and then maybe the weekend days will be a little more filled up. We both love those first couple weekends because there's 4 games each day, and it's absolutely amazing, and you love it. Saturday and Sunday. That's what I think it's looking like it'll be set up like.
And we should also note 7-game series sounds like the most likely scenario right now, which is big. I think for them to stick to a 7-game series, it's pretty important.
Yeah, Adam Silver has said he wants 7-game series. He believes 7-game series through the entirety of the NBA playoffs crowns a true champion. You've run the gauntlet. You've earned that championship. And I think even in this year where, people are going to be like, it's so weird. They had all these months off and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's not, there's nothing you can do about that. But yeah, if you came back with, all right, the first round's best of 3, and then the next 2 rounds are best of 5, or I could see people now all of a sudden, best of 3, a top seed loses the first game, and they're on the ropes, right? Now you're in trouble. Exactly. So I don't think we're going to get that. I think, maybe the first round is best of 5, which there's some who clamor to go back to that anyway. People really liked that. They thought it was a lot more exciting. Plus it shortened everything down and got it over quicker. But yeah, I think we're more likely to see 7 games because then you hit the magic word there, revenue. You want those games on TV. You want as many of those games out being played as possible.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. You want as many of those playoff games out there so that people will be watching them. They get the eyeballs on them. And you know what? There's going to be people saying, oh, like Shaq, right? Put an asterisk by the champion this season because it was so different, because they took a break and all of that. And those cries would be even louder if it was, say, a best of 3 first round or whatever you do to change it. But I think the one thing that I keep putting out there is no matter what happens, there is no normal. That's not happening. So you just have to roll with it. And that's just that's the reality that we're in right now. So I don't. The whole asterisk thing, I don't buy it. Everybody's in the same situation. We're making the best of it, and there's no alternative. We do what we have to do in order to get the season in.
Yeah, if you're that stuck on this, then I'm going to say, then don't watch. Or if you were someone in a person of power that's that stuck on it, then vote against having it and just be like, we're done. This season's over. We're going to move on because it's not what it's going to be, And it's funny. I would encourage anybody who's got kind of the thinking or is curious about how people might think about that. Woj did a pod with Tom Thibodeau this week, and I thought he talked a lot about that 1999 lockout season, which was a 50-game season, and he talked about the Knicks and how the Knicks ended up in the 8th seed that year because they were banged up at the beginning of the year and lost a bunch of games, and then they really picked up steam in the last 20 or so games, played really well, got into the playoffs, made a big run, made it all the way to the NBA Finals, because by that point they were playing like the team they always thought they had kind of envisioned that they'd be, and they made it to the finals. And I think what was interesting there was that came out of is there an asterisk? And he's like, as long as it's the same for everybody, no, it is the same situation for all 30 teams. Everybody's going to deal with this, and anybody who's crying about, we could have made the playoffs. Well, right now there's a 5-game spread in the one conference, 3.5 in the other. They
Yeah.
probably weren't,
Probably wasn't going to happen.
Maybe the Pelicans, were going to make a run at that thing.
Or the
They had a
Blazers.
pretty easy closing schedule. Yeah, and I think Portland was the other one with an easy closing schedule. And Memphis was a little bit tougher. But, it's not like it's a game and a half where you're tied.
Yeah.
So I'm not, overly worried, about that. It's, I think whoever gets in, and this is what it is. And everybody's, dealing with it. And and quite frankly, I would go to, well, you should have won more games than in, December and January. If that's your big concern, you should have played better then, because this really proves those games count just as much as the ones in March and April do. So, you should.
It just takes a pandemic for them to count.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's all.
But yeah, and hopefully that's not going to be ever a thing we have to go through again. But
right.
yeah, I think we're going to get something that resembles the real and true playoffs as much as possible with this.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to try to keep it as normal as they possibly can. And I can't wait. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see NBA basketball and then eventually playoff basketball. I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping that you're right about like the marquee matchups being pushed to later in the evening because the NBA is going to need that revenue. I hope that we see some of the better battles later on, and we don't, you don't have Lakers at noon like you were saying.
Yeah, I can't imagine it, right? Just for one, a big chunk of this is for those regional networks. Well, who's the Lakers? Is it Spectrum or somebody like that? I think. Spectrum's not going to want to put a game on, on a Tuesday at noon. The Lakers game. They're going to want that Tuesday at 7 p.m. their time.
Right.
That's when they're going to want to put that game on. So yeah. So I don't think you're getting the West Coast teams playing, these noon tip-offs. Maybe you slip who's a bad team in the West. It's kind of in the middle of the Timberwolves.
The Kings.
Yeah. Well, even the Kings, maybe you still want them, but the Timberwolves, right? They're only kind of West anyway. So you could put them at noon, and everybody's like, yeah, whatever, move on. But yeah, the best teams, the teams that are in the West, I think they'll play in their normal-ish time slots. Because we even see that in summer league too. The West Coast teams generally tend to play in the later slots. The East teams play in the earlier, and that's how it works. So yeah, I think you're going to see them, put this together in a way to maximize eyeballs on it as much as possible. Yeah,
agreed. And you know what? I can't wait. It seems like every day we're hearing more and more concrete details, which is what I've been begging for weeks now. Something concrete to come out. Give us some real dates. Give us some semblance of hope that this thing's coming back. And I feel like we have that now. And I'm extremely excited and hopeful. I can't wait till that Woj comes out saying we're back officially. Let's go. I'm certainly ready for NBA basketball. Keith, why don't we wrap up there? Final thoughts? Anything you want to close with?
Yeah, no, man, I'm with you. I want it back too. And I think, I've said all along, if you can do this safely and you can do it in a way where you're not taking away from folks who really need it. And here in Central Florida, knock on wood, we have done very well comparative to a lot of other places with, people staying safe and, our numbers are very, very low and, that's really important. And I think, that's a big chunk of giving the NBA the confidence of, come here, we're going to put the faith and trust in Disney that they can, run this. And I think, I said it last time, I guarantee we're going to have basketball. Well, I can't do more than that. I double guarantee. I don't know, but we're going to have basketball and we're going to have real basketball games that count and matter by the middle of July. That's my belief.
I mean, on one hand, that sounds, oh my gosh, that's, whatever, almost 2 months away.
Right.
But at the same time, we've been waiting for so long. It's like just to have that date to look forward to, I think is thrilling. So,
well, let me say one last thing. Sorry, because a lot of people have said, like, why is it going to take so long? Just think of it this way. Summer League, which has no stakes at all for the teams, right? Players have stakes because that's a lot of them how they get jobs in the league. But for the teams, there's very, very few stakes involved. They plan for months and months and months and months for Summer League. You're talking about picking up the entirety of the NBA, putting it in one place, playing really important games that mean something and crowning a champion. Let them take, a month and a half to 2 months to figure it out and get them there if that's what needs to be done.
Absolutely. You got to get it right. You can't just kind of wing it and then hope everything's going to turn out okay. That's not going to work.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap things up for us today. Again, we're excited. Feels like NBA basketball is just about back. Tons and tons of stuff going around right now. And it's certainly an exciting time. We appreciate you joining us here, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to the podcast version. And Keith's got, for those of you on the podcast version, Keith has this. Why does Mickey not have like eyes? He's got a Mickey Mouse that's got a basketball.
They're just big eyes. He's just super excited because he's going up for dunk. I think my eyes would be big too.
He's got they're all dark. They're totally black eyes. They're like demon eyes.
Maybe he's got them closed. Maybe he's like MJ with the tongue. He closes his eyes as he goes up. I don't know. I think he looks good. He's ready. He's ready to ball.
He's ready to play some basketball. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review this show on Apple Podcasts. And, of course, if you're watching us on the Lakers Nation YouTube channel, make sure you guys comment. Let us know what you think about the NBA coming back. If you want to follow Keith on social media, find him at Keith Smith NBA on Twitter. You can follow me at Trevor_Lane on Twitter, or at Trevor Lane NBA on Instagram. Till next time, everybody. NBA is almost back. Here we go. Stay safe. See ya.